and thanks very much for being with us. We begin tonight with the future of Victoriaville, as it's expected that Thunder Bay City Council will decide its fate tonight. It's recommended that the mall be demolished, with that section of Victoria Avenue being reopened to pedestrians and vehicles. Ryan Benazzo has the details of what will be considered by council members before they cast their vote.
Victoriaville has been operating at a deficit ever since it opened in 1980. Last year, the mall cost the city more than $473,000. The roof will also need extensive repair if the facility stays open. The proposed demolition and subsequent street reconstruction are loosely estimated to cost about $10.75 million. Administration has now provided answers to a number of questions asked by councillors when the report first came to council last month. For example, the demolition would result in more than $8,600 in lost municipal taxes for the city and nearly $2,300 in provincial education taxes. However, future taxes as a result of downtown renewal efforts that would take place if the mall is demolished should more than offset those initial losses. The Thunder Bay Police Service and the Crime Prevention Council have also provided comment. The police service says opening up Victoria Avenue may make the area safer with improved lighting and sight lines. The Crime Prevention Council's member organizations are split on whether it's a good idea to remove Victoriaville. Those in support also cite safety as well as the overall perception of the area. Those opposed note that losing the facility means losing a safe indoor space for vulnerable people. Ryan Benazzo, TBT News.
The pinhole leak problem continues to rise to the surface across the city, with a rally of affected homeowners scheduled for Wednesday afternoon at City Hall. We spoke with officials from Red River Holdings today. The company owns numerous apartment buildings that have been hit hard with leaky pipes.
We've now had over 300 pinhole leaks since March of 2019.
Robert McKenzie is the maintenance supervisor for Red River Holdings, whose residential properties include Bayview Towers and Red River Towers. Of those 300 leaks McKenzie mentioned, he says the lion's share of them have been at those two high-rise apartment buildings. He says the leaks have been steadily increasing over the last year to the point it's now rare to go even one day without fixing a pinhole leak. The company is currently replacing all copper riser pipes at Red River Towers, which has already cost them $50,000 in parts. When asked his thoughts on the probable cause, McKenzie's confident it's sodium hydroxide.
Well, I'm very confident because, like I said, it's far too much of a coincidence. You can't have a 3,000% increase in leak rates within the space of 1 year and it just be due to nothing.
McKenzie says they'll likely be looking for some form of compensation from the city, but with the recent public outcry and the growing number of leaks, he thinks it will be almost impossible to cover everybody. Poverty-Free Thunder Bay is hoping that results from its survey on transit fares will lead the city to adopt Canada's first zero-cost transit system. A report from that survey suggests decreasing transit fares year by year until the service is free, and a majority of respondents are in favor of this change. Corey Nordstrom has more.
Transit fares were free from March 20th to July 20th as the city looked to minimize contact surfaces on their buses during the pandemic. The move prompted a survey by Poverty-Free Thunder Bay looking at impacts of the free service on riders and if respondents would support transit being free year-round.
Do I buy fruit for the month? Do I buy a lunch pass? Both are equally important, but then it came down to necessity. All right, and it shouldn't have to be necessity over eating.
That does sound like a really good idea to me because a lot of people on low income and whatnot, that will help them out a lot, and I feel like just throughout the city, just general population-wise, they'd love it.
70 people completed the survey that claimed that they never took transit, and even some of those were highly supportive and said things like, I don't take transit myself, but it's made a huge difference to my friends and I'm willing to pay more taxes to support it.
70% of transit costs are already paid for through city tax dollars. The goal would be to eventually make that 100% by dropping daily transit rides to $2 next year, then $1 in 2022, and in 2023 have the service free of charge.
When we move to fare-free transit, ridership will increase, so Thunder Bay Transit will need to do some thinking about their routes and their equipment. The city of Thunder Bay does budgeting sort of fairly far ahead, so suddenly losing all the revenue from becoming fare free, on January 1st of 2021 would be more difficult.
About 3/4 of the 420 people that participated in the survey were in favor of free transit, but concerns like overcrowding and overall deterioration of the bus service were brought to light as well.
But if we follow the Transportation Master Plan from 2019, route optimization is underway. With more ridership, the system gets more effective and more efficient, and we'll have more frequent buses.
Poverty-Free Thunder Bay plans on bringing this data to council and are hopeful that at least one member will champion the fight for free transit fares in Thunder Bay. Corey Nordstrom, TBT News.
Local MPP Judith Monteith-Farrell says she's cautiously optimistic about a new streetcar order coming to Thunder Bay's Bombardier plant. A glimmer of hope emerged over the weekend as it was announced the Toronto Transit Commission will vote this Thursday on a recommendation to buy at least 13 more streetcars from Bombardier. Monteith-Farrell says she'll be following the proceedings very closely.
Just in the House where the Associate Transport Minister was speaking about the transportation file in a minister's statement, and there was not one mention of building those cars in Thunder Bay. Although we have heard from both the Minister of Transportation, Carolyn Mulroney, and the Premier, who came to Thunder Bay talking about building those cars in Thunder Bay, we still don't know why they're delaying.
The local plant is facing possible closure in 2022 if more orders don't come in. TTC officials say the streetcar order could be increased from 13 cars to 60 if both the federal and provincial governments provide the additional funding. Monteith-Farrell says she's not sure if the governments will make the commitment they've been promising for years.
We've heard the seesaw between the federal government saying, well, if the province steps up, then we'll step up, and back and forth. We need those commitments to at least the 60 cars to keep what we have, the workforce that we have now in place, future transportation needs for Toronto, and billions of dollars being announced, but we need the commitment to actually building in Ontario.
There's been some startling testimony at the Ontario Commission of Inquiry into Long-Term Care. It's been told that the province's long-term care associations were shut out of the planning process in the early stages of the COVID pandemic. Colin DeMello reports.
When the Ford government began planning the fight against COVID-19 earlier this year, there was one group notably absent from the strategy sessions. Long-term care associations were not invited to the initial planning and were not involved for weeks. The revelation was made by the Ontario Hospital Association, which testified this month in front of the Long-Term Care Commission investigating exactly what went wrong. While the planning began in January and February, long-term care was not looped into the conversation until March 21st. And even then, the Ontario Hospital Association says the conversations at government seem to lack urgency.
I think it's incompetent. I can't for the life of me understand how anybody thought that that was the right path to take.
In the meantime, hospitals were racing to free up space, fearing a wave of COVID-19 patients. Some hospital administrators testified that patients were moved out of hospitals and into long-term care homes, exacerbating the situation when the virus finally hit. The minister in charge of the file suggested today that the experts at the command table made the best decisions with the information they had at the time.
Well, I think there's many lessons learned. I don't judge anyone in terms of what the command table was doing at the time. Everyone's doing their very best in an unprecedented situation.
That unprecedented situation called for action. And on April 10th, the Ontario Hospital Association sent a letter to the Ford government pleading for urgency. That letter, the association testified, led to a phone call from the Minister of Long-Term Care, who said, quote, "It would help generate momentum for necessary change."
Why was that change being blocked in the first place? Who was blocking it? Was the Premier blocking it? Was the Minister of Treasury Board blocking it? Who was blocking the need for change in long-term care?
It's clear to all of us the need to generate momentum for long-term care. I think if you haven't recognized that until now, then perhaps you have not been observing what has been going on.
It wasn't until April 15th, many months after the beginning of the pandemic, that the government launched a long-term care action plan, which finally helped stabilize the homes.
Ontario Provincial Police have issued a Canada-wide warrant for a federal offender with known ties to Thunder Bay. 26-year-old Nader Mohammed is wanted for breaching the provisions of his statutory release on drug and weapons charges. Mohammed is described as being 5'10" and 160 pounds with black hair and brown eyes. He is known to frequent the Toronto, Kingston, and Thunder Bay areas. Anyone with information of his whereabouts is asked to contact the OPP. Residential and small business customers of Synergy North now have a choice as to which electricity pricing plan they want to use. The time of use plan is the one that all current hydro customers are using, but the utility is introducing a new tiered pricing plan that customers can switch to. The current time of use plan is a standard pricing based on electricity used depending on time of day, while the tiered plan is based on how much electricity a household consumes each day. The Ontario Energy Board is allowing the change in an effort to make electricity more affordable. The new pricing comes into effect November 1st. Tools are available on Synergy North's website to help customers make an educated decision about which plan is best for them.
We do have available their historical consumption, so what they've been consuming in the past couple months. So they can take that information that they got from our historical comparison and they can enter it into the Ontario Energy Board calculator. This will generate a mock-up or a hypothetical bill for the customers on either tiered or time of use, so it'll show them what they could expect if they continue that consumption pattern.
No, there's no deadline for when people need to make the switch if they choose to. The two options are always available, and the switch can be made at any time. Well, today was the day for clients to start moving into the Salvation Army's new Journey to Life Center. The $15 million building on Cumberland Street is a complete upgrade from the previous shelter next door, which the organization has used for almost 50 years. Kayla Karim has details.
The three-story building has a floor dedicated to each of the services offered, including individual living spaces for those in the Journey to Life program. Residents from the previous building moved in as early as 9 o'clock Monday morning and continued throughout the day. Journey to Life Center Executive Director Gary Ferguson says there are so many important aspects of the infrastructure, but the comfort of the new facility is what he is most excited about.
I think the actual space for the clients, the programming space that we have, just the new building itself and the technology that we actually have in this building that we didn't have in the other building. As you can see when you walk through, we really utilized light, so it's a very bright building.
The Journey to Life program is based off an individual assessment for those who have desire for change. Staff work alongside the residents, helping them achieve their goals in order to transition out of the facility within a year. 20 residents have been selected based on their individual needs, have already moved into their living quarters along with those in the long-term shelter, such as Niska Comwind.
My room I love my room. It is great. It's one of the best places I've ever been to.
It's all brand new. It's very nice. It's big, way bigger. The other building is it's older, so it's not more run down and stuff. And this building is way brand new. I've never been in a new building, so it's nice.
Some of the added features of the new building include spaces for improving mental health. These include a fitness center open to all residents and a brightly lit chapel room. The move-in was expected to be completed by end of day, and the old building will now be demolished to create parking for the Journey to Life Center. Kayla Karim, TBT News.
Well, it's coming to that time of year when most local golf courses are getting ready to shut down. 2020 was a unique golf season as the sport provided a welcomed escape from the pandemic. City officials say Chapels and Strathcona golf courses both saw a record number of rounds played. Avery McRae has details.
While there are some around the Northwest who welcome the mid-October snow, but for golfers in the city, it's a sign of their days being limited. The season first began in mid-May, and over the 4 months, the courses around town saw a steady stream of customers, with tee times near impossible to find early in the season. With many team sports not running this summer due to the pandemic, many turned to golf, with Chapels and Strathcona golf courses seeing new clientele.
We did attract some people that hadn't golfed for a while, some new people that wanted to start up the game, and I think it's a good thing all around for golf across the city. I'm sure most of the other golf courses were busy as well, And, we were just happy that we could do this in a safe environment.
Both Chapels and Strathcona Golf Course saw 25,000 rounds of golf each in 2019. This year, 3,000 more rounds were played, setting this year's total at 56,000 rounds played between the two city courses in just over 4 months, which Berezowski describes as phenomenal.
People definitely came out that hadn't golfed for a long time, that met up with new friends, started out kids that maybe were in some of the other sports like soccer and baseball, weren't able to do it. So they came over to the golf course and snuck in a few rounds.
The two city-run courses in Thunder Bay will allow golfers a few more days to sneak in one final round of golf this season. The courses will close by day's end on Wednesday to allow the courses time to properly close the links before the snow stays until the spring. Fort William Country Club and Whitewater Golf Club were among other courses in the city closed Sunday due to the light dumping of snow, but that doesn't mean the golf season is over quite yet in Thunder Bay. Emerald Greens on Dawson Road said they will allow golfers to play as long as possible, saying Mother Nature will decide when the season has officially come to an end. Avery McRae, TBT News.